now for the Drew Sutton Leadership Show, lighting the way with real leaders, real stories, and real impacts. Because when leaders stop growing, the darkness wins. All right, welcome back to another special episode of the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. Today's episode is brought to you by TAB, the Tech Association of the Bluegrass, Central Kentucky's hub for tech professionals and companies. In today's show, we're going to be answering the most important question facing leaders right now. What can AI not do? And how are mature organizations actually using AI the right way? You know, we hear nonstop in the headlines about artificial intelligence replacing jobs, writing code, and transforming business overnight. But the real conversation is happening inside healthy organizations is far more nuanced. Now, AI can write code, it can analyze data, it can move faster than any team has moved before, but it still can't decide what matters. And that is what's worth building, or how should we work together? To answer that question, my guest today is Nick Such, president of APAX Software, and someone with nearly 2 decades of front row experience watching the evolution of software development. Nick has lived through every major wave of desktop, mobile, cloud, IoT, cross-platform, Bitcoin, NFTs, and now AI. Like many of us, he had a moment where he wondered whether AI would completely replace software development altogether. But with experience comes clarity. And Nick now sees that what many organizations are discovering, people are still the hardest part of software. So with that, welcome to the show, Nick.
Drew, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. I want to just a personal note. Nick and I have been good friends for almost a decade now. When I moved back to Lexington, he was one of the first people I met, and he has lived the dream. He has lived the life we all wanted to live. He started out as a mechanical engineer, which is basically blacksmithing today.
It's the best way to start, right, Drew?
It is 100% the best way to start. That's right. You got to build an electric car before it was cool. You got to start a business with one of your best friends. You've got to educate the community and bring tech and coding to Lexington. And then you married a beautiful wife. You have 4 kids. And now somehow you still manage to be deeply connected to the community. So thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Yeah, Drew, no, I'm really excited to have this conversation. And it's been really cool kind of seeing our friendship grow and change over the years. You know, I've met so many people who started in mechanical engineering, and it gives a really great foundation. But so many people who are now in tech, who've kind of come from that. And I think to a little bit of the point that I want to make today, the thing I want to leave the viewers with, what are the things that AI can't solve for us? I think comes from a little bit of that engineering background and that perspective to problem solving. So looking forward to diving in with that. Drew, one of the things I'm thinking about before coming on the show is I remember I got to go to your 40th birthday party, and I think, I don't even know, I'm turning 40 this year. And so I began thinking about that, and man, that was an amazing party. I'll probably get to do something cool, but I don't know if it'll be quite as cool as that.
Well, good, man. Yeah, actually, so shortly after that, I was working on a project for the government. And so I was basically leading a group of 12 PhDs out of Johns Hopkins, and they all started chortling at my jokes. I would tell a joke and they're like, "Ha, that's funny, sir." And I was like, "Oh, I'm officially sir. You officially patronized me with the laugh." It was a big moment. I used to tease my barber or my hairdresser. I'd say, you don't have to put the gray hairs in, because, over time the grays are growing. And then one day she was like, "Well, honey, we can dye it." And I was like, "Oh, that joke's not funny anymore." Yeah, it's been fun to have a friendship as long as we have. One of the stories that I tell about you a lot, I don't know that you know that I tell this story, is when we came back from COVID. So you and I live in 2 cities that are pretty close. Is that when we came back from COVID, you and I had an opportunity to spend like lunch, or like, it was just like us hanging out. And I have always been a little bit sad that we couldn't be best friends by distance. Like, I think that we have so many resonances, and I deeply respect you. But COVID separated us. And so when we came back, I remember it being kind of awkward to hang out, because we hadn't watched the same ball game. We hadn't watched the same news service. We hadn't watched the same, binge the same stuff on Netflix. And it profoundly, it gave me this insight into the importance of these little cultural threads that run through a community, where two people who really like each other still need these common experiences in order to kind of really make the relationship, I guess, social lubricant, maybe. I don't know.
Mhm.
But you've always been a community builder. In your mind, what creates great community in a company?
Yeah. So, Drew, I think one of the things that's really stood out to me this year, and for better or worse, there's been a lot of RTO, return to office, especially in the tech industry. And uh, when I heard that the Zoom team, was returning to office, that the pinnacle of remote collaboration, that this company saw a benefit in people being in the same room. I realize as helpful as it is, it's great when there's a global pandemic that we can use FaceTime and Zoom and can talk to work colleagues, and my kids can talk with their grandparents from afar. But there really is something special about being in that same room. I just finished reading a book called Super Communicators, and it reemphasized something I've heard many times, that so much of our communication is not about words. And I think that also gets into a little bit of where we are with large language models right now, what they can and can't do. But I think for building a team, for building a community, having those shared experiences is just really important. Being in the same room is super important, and so it's been great, especially seeing things like meetup groups. It's
Mm,
a big hit around COVID. Those have come back. Shout out to Matt Gordon and crew. The Lexington Data Technology Meetup has been really consistent. There's a Salesforce user group in town, I think, that has done a really good job of having consistent meetings. Um, I think John Meister and crew with Run Jump Dev have done a really good job. And it's just, once a week, once a month, whatever that might be, um, being in the same place is really powerful. And that's part of our philosophy with APAX software as well. Like, we've been hybrid since before like that was a category. Um,
yes, yes, yes. I think that I think that if a software company can't be productive in a hybrid scenario, I think I think maybe that's not the software company you should trust.
yeah.
You should always be tech forward. When COVID happened, I remember that I was working out of a large company that rhymes with Awkeed,
Mhm.
and we'd always had the right to take our computers home if we needed to, kind of like very, very like not even remote work, just like if you're on an airplane and we want to get a hold of you, you can sometimes do this.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and all the presidents, all the executives, all of a sudden had to stay home, and suddenly, adding new servers for remote work was a distinct priority for the team.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I just appreciated their intuitiveness, like that they were in touch with the times, right? Not that they needed the extra bandwidth, but that they were in touch with the times. As a leader, how do you lead a remote team?
Yeah. So when we think about hybrid versus, remote versus in person, um, everything you need to do for in person, everything you need to do, well for remote. Hybrid, you have to do both of those things really well. And one of the reasons that we like it, um, is that it does give you a little bit of the best of both worlds, but it does take more work. We don't have a mandatory number of days in office. Um, we actually we work out of a co-working space. So our sister company, Awesome Inc., runs a co-working space. I'm upstairs in the podcast studio here. Apax now has a dedicated office in here on the other side of the building, but for a while we just had open co-working desks. And after COVID, our team members asked us, "Hey, can we have a dedicated office just for our team? We want to be able to be close to each other, to have this space that was all our own, to have a space to share knowledge, to have a space to overhear conversations," which is, especially in my background, coming from the training side now to the consulting side, so important for people, especially earlier in their career, just to have those water cooler conversations or overhear. And I think that's one of the toughest things to replicate in a remote setting is, how do you have those that beneficial serendipity? And really, in a remote world, you kind of have to facilitate it. It's a lot harder to do things by accident. I think of it like the difference between an animated film and and live action. Um, there are a lot of happy accidents in a live action film,
Mm.
um, but in an animated film, I was just hearing about K-pop Demon Hunters, um, and they talked, super successful film, runaway success, winning Golden Globes and whatnot. But they, you know, when are you going to make the sequel? And they said, well, it'll take us about 6 years.
Oh my goodness.
Everything that you see in an animated film, there are no accidents. Everything there had
Mm.
created, by someone. Sure, maybe AI helps a little bit now, but I think remote is a little bit like that. You just have to be very, very intentional. It takes a little more, time and intentionality to get that right.
Yeah. You kind of brushed over something. I want to talk more about remote work, but you brushed over something. There was a significant period of time here where you were leading the premier coding class in Kentucky. So you and your team, you looked at the Kentucky ecosystem, the tech ecosystem. You said we have people graduating from computer science, but computer science, like a generic degree in computer science that doesn't have teeth, we need people to be able to code. And so rather than just hope and wish, you led the charge and you were president of that coding school for a while. How many people came through your coding school?
Sure, yeah. So that program was called Awesome InQ,
Yeah.
and had the pleasure of leading that from about 2013 through 2024. We had 150 adults who went through kind of the premier course in there called the Web Developer Bootcamp, and that was a 3 month course and career placement beyond that. Um, and with that course, these are folks who are looking to leave one career and get into software development. Had a lot of folks who actually came out of working in coffee shops, who were baristas, and they wanted to be not the person working for the coffee shop, like they wanted to be the person on the laptop working from the coffee shop.
I
And it
love
was it
that.
was really cool. I mean, I was at Manchester Coffee the other day and saw Robbie, one of our boot camp grads who works for Covetrus. He's doing it, and
Yeah.
it's super rewarding. Was not what I thought I would be doing early in my career, but kind of got to that after a series of failed startups. And what we had in our startup team was we had learned how to use some of these web technologies that were modern and emerging, and um, learned something really interesting from. I'm a graduate of the University of Kentucky. Had a wonderful experience there in the engineering program. But one of the key insights, not only in mechanical engineering but in computer science as well, is that the internship is the part where your draft stock goes up.
Yes.
Um, you can be a 4.0 student and have trouble finding a job. You can have far worse grades, but have the best internships and those, experiential learning opportunities. And that's what employers are looking for. And now that I'm on the other side, I'm on the side of hiring people. I totally agree. But that was one of the key insights that we had going into that coding bootcamp program, was that we basically ran a 3 month internship where someone with no experience learned the basics, worked with a senior software engineer, and people were job ready in that time. So that was a really fun experience, and definitely led me to my work now with APAX. About half our team went through that program, um, and we've got a great mix at APAX as well. So I've got folks who are came through the boot camp program, ours or even other programs, and then I've got folks who went through traditional computer science, and we've even got one guy on our team with a PhD, another who is currently pursuing his. So I think it's one of my favorite things on the APAC side is we've got this really diverse range of experiences, and I think this is one of the things that makes our team makeup really interesting in the age of AI. Is we have folks who are experts in the technical side of things, but we also have a lot of folks who made this career switch, and in doing that, they bring this whole depth of knowledge and experience from a particular industry that's not technology. So we have Josh Stewart, who came from coaching. He was the head lacrosse coach and sports information director previously at Asbury University. So he has kind of this whole perspective both on, on sports and human development on the coaching side. Um, Stephen Luttrell on our team, came through an architecture program and then worked in nonprofit management and came into software. And some of the skills like those have just been super valuable for our clients. That we have not only the ability to build what they need, but yeah, a chance to have that perspective too.
No, I love that, and I love that because I've got to watch this over the last decade, and it's been really cool to see all these people that have passion, and you giving them upskilling them, and then you giving them a path forward. It's super cool. But now you're the president of a software company. Um, what do you do to manage that hybrid work scenario? I know that you have a couple of values that you think are really interesting. One of them is to deliver value quickly. So,
Yes.
how do you keep your team focused and understand what it means to be an Apex developer?
Sure. Yeah, Drew. So at APAX, we have four core values: be good, be excellent, be a friend, and be you. And so everything that we do is built on top of those four core values. Um, and they are in a particular order as well. So if you're not being good, we don't want you to be excellent at that. Um, but going back to that kind of that perspective our team brings, that's where our fourth core value is. So if you were good, excellent, and a friend, we want folks to bring in kind of that unique perspective. Um, you mentioned deliver value quickly, and that really is kind of um, our theme for the year. It's something I've been talking with our team a lot about, and I think AI puts us in kind of a very special situation. I want to go deeper into that, but talking about deliver value quickly, each of those words is very intentional. So deliver is what we do. We build custom software, and so kind of like a general contractor, someone hires us to build software for them. We don't build our own software products. We don't maintain those. We're doing work for our clients, and our clients can't see value until we are delivering that. And there's a lot of internal delivery that's necessary too. Right before this, I was on a sales call, and we had our project manager Caleb and Chris and Nathan, two of our engineers, in there. And one of the next steps is they've got to talk and make a plan before we can get back to that client. So that's kind of where deliver comes in. Value, one of a big point of emphasis for us this year, something we've been doing but hadn't really formalized, is business analysis. And I think in the age of AI, especially, having a great understanding of what you want to build, why you want to build it, how the organization values that's the first step. There's so many ways to build things quickly, but it means it's easier than ever to build the wrong thing.
Yes. I love this. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine named Yaron. The number one problem I think that's facing us with AI is what you just brought up here is describing value and doing something that matters. It used to be so difficult to do things that you would only partake on an adventure that was worth doing. So
Mhm.
describing value was like this important thing, but it's so fast to make something that appears to work. And we can we can talk in about building the right thing. I know that you're passionate about that. But to sit down and really think through what is actually valuable, not to me, not to the developer, not because I want to look smart, what is valuable to the customer, right? So talk to me real quick. How do you instill that value of
Mhm.
focusing on value to your team?
Yeah. So it's one of the things, our team is just very passionate about the work we do. We have a lot of great clients to work with. And I've been a client. We've had contractors, do work, whether that's personally or for a business. And one of the things that clients aren't great at is actually asking for what we want. And that's one of the things that our team has become so good at. And so, number one, they care about our clients. They want them to have a good outcome. Most of our clients stick with us for a long time. So our average client right now has worked with us for 6 years. We've some who've been with us for more than 10. Um, and so having that long term focus, helps us to think about value really from our customers' perspective. And but yeah, a lot of times they don't know what they want. They can't put that into words. That's something our team works very hard, almost like a journalist. What is that thing that you actually want? And based on our experience, we have um, some insights as to what that might be. But I think that's something I love seeing from our team. Got to see that this morning. Hey, I'm hearing this from you, but what I think you're really trying to ask for is this. Is that right? And sometimes it's kind of hard. We're not great at being order takers, but we're good at being the guide and helping our clients get to the place where they need to be, even if that's not what they particularly asked for.
Yes, I love it. One of my favorite companies is IDEO. I've read a lot of their materials, and they take a very anthropological approach to building solutions. The question is, well, what are the people currently doing, and what are they trying to do? But then you bring up, which is this is a perfect reason to hire somebody like you or your team. A lot of people are more than happy to take your money, but finding somebody that can help you think through the questions that you're trying to ask, um, that's the real value, because you want to build something that's meaningful.
Yeah.
So let's talk about AI. AI is this great enabler. And so there's all sorts of kids at 15, 12. I come to some of the startup programs, like kind of the startup weekends that you guys do over there at Awesome Inc. And I'm frankly stunned at the amount of technical knowledge and the technical confidence that these young folks have vibe coding. But then
Mhm.
I've developed serious things for the military that have to be, cybersecurity, and people's lives are depending on this. And there's a big gulf between I can make it work on the TV screen, I can vibe code it, and I can actually trust it with my life. There's this huge gap. I can run my company on it.
Yeah.
You have this thing you say is right way, or right thing, right way. So
Mhm.
talk to me about what that means, and talk to me about how you ensure that you are always building the right thing the right way.
Yeah. So that right thing is a bit of what we talked about, is understanding that value, um, and with that, to understand that right thing, kind of my third word in that previous part was deliver value quickly. The quickly part, one of the things that we've realized over time is, we will do as part of our process. We'll start with research and discovery, and we'll have some reports. We'll move into a design phase where we've got wireframes and mock-ups. But really, until we've built something, a prototype, an MVP, it's really hard for people to understand what they want. Again, that's a hard thing as a client to know. But we're pretty good at telling you what we don't want. And so one of the ways that we get to building the right thing, is through prototyping, is getting something in the hands of our clients quickly. And so with that, we get a chance to validate, hey, is this doing what you expected it to do? The sooner we can do that, the sooner we can go back to the next part, is, hey, are we building this the right way? AI, one of the great things is it allows us to build those throwaway prototypes a lot faster. In the past, it would take about the same amount of time to build a prototype as it would to build the real thing, and that's expensive. So I really like that piece.
I think that's a great description, because there's ideation, but then sometimes you have to have it in your hand. And it's less than a minimum viable product, and kind of
Mhm.
more in some ways, because you're like, what I really think I need a watch the size of the sun, so that I can. And then you put it on, you're like, oh, that's not what I want, and you got to be able to experience it. Um, and so being able to quickly prototype that, I think it's a great use of AI.
Mhm.
The way I use AI a whole lot is, if I'm writing an email, I'll say, hey, this is the person I'm talking to. I want to convey these ideas. I want these major points to get through, but I recognize that I are an engineer. And so can you help me? And so to be able to quickly run through what I'm trying to do, literally, it's 100 times faster. But it's not something I want to trust my life with. So I love that
Mhm.
prototyping is so much faster, but then you got to go back and do that classical engineering. Now,
That's
you do
right.
work for lots of different folks. I know that Awesome Inc. and APAX have always been big supporters of the startup field and have
Mhm.
helped out a lot of startups. But that's not your only client base. What's your largest client?
Yeah,
You
Drew.
don't have
That's
to say the name. I apologize. I'm not
sure.
asking you to
No,
tell people
glad to
out.
talk about a few of these. This has been, one of the interesting things for me coming into the APAC side of things. In my former work on the Awesome Inc. side of the house, we do work with a lot of small tech startups, new businesses growing quickly. On the APAC side, about half of our business is actually in the public sector. healthcare, higher education, government, and nonprofits. So we do a lot of work in that space. UK healthcare is one of our big clients. So we do their content management system, their primary website. Great client. I've loved working with them. Um, Healthcare is one of those places where you always feel like you're making a difference, like
Oh
you're
yeah.
saving lives. That one's great. We work with an organization called Kiprick, which is a part of the College of Public Health at the University of Kentucky and the Kentucky Department for Public Health, an organization as a partnership between those two. And we get to work on a tool called Find Help Now, ky.org. And Find Help Now is a place to help people find treatment for substance use disorder.
Mm.
A bunch of other resources that's supporting that population. And again, we get to write a little bit of code, and it saves people's lives. And that's one of the things our team really loves, is getting to work with clients like that. We do
I
work
love it.
with some startups as well, and really enjoy that side. But it's it's a different kind of challenge.
So tell me some of your favorite stories about what you've done. I know that, again, you've been doing this, you've been helping people learn to code, but even in that time, you've been helping with the APAX team.
Mhm.
What are your favorite APAX stories? The moments when you're like, "Yep, this makes it all worth it."
Yeah. So going back to findhelpnow.org, one of the really cool things, the problem that existed before that site came to be, um, was that it was very slow and difficult to find treatment for substance use disorder, and to find a lot of the various resources needed. Kind of the preliminary research we found is it took about 72 hours, about 3 days, for someone to find a place for treatment. And really what we built, I mean, it's Airbnb, it's hotels.com, for finding these treatment resources. Before we built this, and before a client came to us, the state of the art out there was like a spreadsheet. And you'd call someone and they would look at this list and they would say, hey, you're in Danville, here's 5 places, call them. And so there might be 5 places that provide these types of services, but who knows if they actually have availability? There's limited availability, just like there would be at a hotel or Airbnb. And so that's the key unlock. And one of the things it's been really cool to see is Kentucky is a leader in this nationally, at being able to provide real time availability. So what used to take 72 hours now takes about 15 minutes. And this is a life, yeah, an opportunity to stay alive. It's just been really powerful, even to hear the governor talk about that, and celebrate that as a win for Kiprick. It's been cool to be part of that process.
No, that's very cool. And this is, as I think about AI and as I think about the future that we're moving into, a lot of people are anxious. They're like, "Oh, it's going to take our jobs. It's going to change the economy." I hope that it does, but I hope it does it in the way that APAX is doing, which is we are removing the friction to all these things that are preventing people from getting help. So
Mhm.
rather than like this, this dystopian future where there's just like 7 oligarchs and everybody else is just like on the street begging, what if we live in the Star Trek world where AI and computers enable us to be the best version of ourselves? I think that's possible if we have great leaders that are leading organizations that are focused on core values, and then we look at the opportunities tech can do to bring, again, convert something from 72 hours down to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That is super exciting. That gets me jazzed.
Yeah.
What as you look at AI, what is your biggest hope for AI over the next couple of years? What is, there's the dangers, but like with a hopeful view, and this is one of the great things about you, Nick, is that you're such a positive person, not like in a flaky way, but like in a genuine optimistic way. What do you look forward to most in using AI?
Yeah. So I've found, and over the last year especially, there have been in the even in the software development community a little bit of a split. People who are very excited and place a lot of trust in what AI can do, and folks who are digging their heels in and saying, hey, like keep your hands off my code, and I don't want um, any code written by AI. I want this to be human crafted. And I think one of the really cool things looking forward, I saw a commercial from Anthropic recently, the makers of Claude, and I think they did a really good job. The commercial was about, it's a bad time to be a problem. So they had, kind of these personified problems out there.
Oh, that's solid.
Yeah, it was like, these are going to get solved. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the interesting things about software. One of the things I've learned, like, no one really wants software, like software itself. Um, it doesn't keep you warm at night. You can't eat it or drink it, but it is a very powerful tool as a means to getting you those problems solved. And I think that's really exciting. We do have this opportunity to build, and it's happening right now. More software was built in 2025 than ever before.
Hmm.
And so I think that's the thing that I'm really excited about. Kind of our spot in here is a lot of that's the wrong software. A lot of it's not built really well, and that can be really, really frustrating. And so that's one of the things I'm really excited. We do a lot of rescue projects. A lot of clients come to us after, even before AI. Hey, I built this my own. I built this myself with a low code or WYSIWYG tool. Great for a prototype, and they know they need to take that up. Or hey, they went with a different vendor, and it just wasn't it wasn't quality. It wasn't what they were looking for. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for us. I think there's a lot of software that's going to need rescuing, but really, I just hate when someone is dealing with software and they feel things aren't working. There's a lot of friction, and they feel like they're the problem. To me, it's a great example, harkening back to IDEO, of this poor user experience. And so, me, that's really like the future that I'm looking forward to is moving beyond just a lot of bad software and having stuff. Software is working best, I think, when it's kind of invisible. You get to do
Yes.
what you're trying to do. It just facilitates that.
Yes. I actually think about this a lot. The idea that glass is one of the major enablers of our modern
Mhm.
world. It does
Mhm.
fiber optics, which maybe you'd think about, but if you're
Yeah.
like, I drove my kids to the swim meet over the weekend, and
Mhm.
I'm doing 70 miles an hour, of course, directly on the speed limit, no over.
That's
Um,
right.
and that's I can only drive 70 miles an hour because I got a bug screen, right? I have a
Mhm.
window, and
Yeah.
so I love what you just said there, which is software is working its best when it's invisible, just like your
Mhm.
windshield.
Yeah.
It's always working best when it's invisible.
Yeah.
Man, that's so cool. All right,
Mhm.
I want to ask one more question, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to you because we're kind of running low on time here.
Sure.
There's a lot of companies around town, CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, CISOs, the people that are in charge of implementing AI in their organization, implementing software in their organization, and they're looking for somebody they can trust. So, what is some advice that you, as the president of APAX Software, have for these industries that are doing real work? They're factories that are making widgets that we use every day. Um,
Mhm.
give me some advice about how I should think about AI and software over the next couple of years.
Sure, Drew. Yeah. So there are three things that we like to say at APAX, about what sets us apart, what makes us special. I think these are things I would say, look for, and whether you're bringing a team in house to build out technology or looking for a vendor. But one of the things that I found is really important is quality. And with software, sometimes it's kind of this black box. It's a lot of folks are scared or intimidated by that, and so really you are looking for just quality that you can rely on. You're looking for that long term value. You're looking for something that works. The second is going back to that building the right thing. Is you're really looking for someone who is both an expert in the technology, but also who is highly collaborative in understanding, what a client wants. And we've worked, from healthcare, government, technology startups, ag tech. We've worked across a lot of different industries, and so being able to dive in, understand what's going on, I think is super important when you're looking to work with the software team. And then, finally, like software again, software on its own, it doesn't do a whole lot. You've got to understand what the problem is and solve the whole problem, and that I think is really key. And it starts in the discovery, the business analysis phase. It comes down to validation, but really understanding and being able to solve that whole problem. Does it work for the users? Does it work for the client? Um, is it something that the organization culturally can adopt? There's a change. management process in there. And so I think those are a few things to look for, if you're an organization considering, building your own software.
I love that. Back in my blacksmithing days when I was building helicopter blades, we had this machine it was kind of like a 3D printer for rotor blades. So you're putting it on carbon fiber, kind of like a 3D printer puts it down. And this guy, the salesman, comes and he's kind of doing his shtick, and he's like, "We can run 6 times faster than your current machine." And so I raised my hand in the back and I said, "Can you turn the corner?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Well, the linear run, we don't do a lot of long running. We do a lot of corner turning. And so can your machine turn the corner?" And he was like, "Oh, actually, no, it's about the same speed as what you're doing now." And I was like, "So what you're telling me is I have a drag racer that is trying to run in the mountain on the mountain roads. It's not doesn't work." And so considering that whole system, the change management, the maintenance, the patching, all of those things, that's what makes software stick. I love it. All right. Well, we are running out of time here. I want you this is just kind of your open stage for you to talk to the audience.
All right. I had a couple people I wanted to give shout outs to, some friends from the community, and some good things going on. One, I've been hanging out a lot with Jeff Presley from Lin Imaging, and he sent me a great article on meta skills, and talking about experts versus generalists. And I just want to highlight Jeff. He's great. But B, this concept he shared is something that's just really stuck with me. Looking back at my career, I'm not a physician. I'm not an accountant. I didn't stick with the mechanical engineering thing and go deep. But this is something that I've really seen, personally benefit me in my career. Things like communication and teamwork, the so-called soft skills. But I think in the age of AI, those are very important. And I think people who master those, they're not easy. They might be soft skills; they don't come naturally. But I think that's going to be very helpful. So shout out to Jeff and that concept of meta skills. Second, want to give a shout out to Ben Atkinson, who's helped me learn a lot about complexity theory. If you ever get a chance to get in a room and Ben Atkinson's at a whiteboard, you're in for a treat. But complexity theory, a concept called Cynefin, has been really impactful on me. And I think it's really helped me understand that the analogy for building software is not like building a house. You don't know what the materials are. You're not just trying to figure out, rooms and fixtures. And you're not just building a house in isolation. It's much more like building a city. And a city is highly complex and tends to develop over time in iterative fashion. And so agile software development, I think, just reminds me a lot more of building a city than building a house. So shout out to Ben for helping me understand that. And then one of the things that's been really helpful for APAX over the last 2 years is a system called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And this Friday, there is a new group in Lexington forming for businesses that use EOS. There's a book called Traction that kind of explains the system, and there are professional implementers who can help your business get started in that. But there's a new user group that's getting started. The first meeting is this Friday in Lexington. So shout out to Marshall Fall, who's actually helped kickstart groups in Louisville and Cincinnati, and who's bringing one here. But that is the EOS Energy meetup group. And thinking back to that community and the tab, this is not really a technical piece. You can run a construction company on EOS, but I think it is a huge piece of that human infrastructure. And excited for this to be coming to Lexington.
I love it. I think you all see why I had Nick on the show. There have been many moments in my life where I've just been able to kick ideas around with Nick, and he's always had a great kind of reflective source of wisdom, and he's brought a lot of ideas. In my mind, the favorite one that I have is when we talked about just-in-time training together. I think about that a lot still. Anyway, so if you are a leader of an organization and you're asking yourself, how do I manage this cobbled together code that we have? How do I take advantage of AI as a coder and as a manager of a factory or a COO? APAX Software has been a long-standing, they're not just a flash in the pan, they've been a long-standing friend in the community that have substantially, consistently built the tech skill of the bluegrass. That's one of the reasons they were a founding member of TAB, the Tech Association of the Bluegrass. And it's one of the reasons that Nick is so well connected and so well loved in the community. If you are looking to write a new piece of software and you're like, look, I don't want to go overseas, I don't know who I can trust, reach out to Nick. Here, I'm going to drop here's his LinkedIn at the bottom of the screen. I'll throw it into the comments at the end of the show. Reach out to Nick. Tell him you saw him on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. And he's got something special. Actually, I want to take a moment to highlight this. Nick has agreed to do a project discovery workshop. That's a $5,000 value. That's a substantial value, and I deeply appreciate it. To support TAB and to support what we're doing here, reach out to APAX, get somebody that knows what they're talking about, understands how to properly implement AI with the thing that AI can't answer, which is how do we deal with the human element? Let's build value quickly. So with that, thank you so much for being on the show, Nick, and we are out.
Thanks, Drew.